Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv. Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
welcome to the November 8th, 2023 meeting of the Budget Recommendations Committee. Tonight, we will be discussing Parks and Rec, Library, and Welfare and Human Services. Subcommittee is headed by Chris Suter, and she was assisted by Liz Canada and Amanda Kelly. Start off with introductions. I'm Bob Kelly, the chair of the committee, and on the Water and Sewer and General DPW subcommittees. Chris?
And Christine Suter, and what am I, vice chair? And and Human Services, Library, and Parks and Rec.
Liz Canada. I'm also on the Library, Human Services, and Parks and Rec committees.
Evening, everyone. Corey Stevens, Finance Director.
Good evening, Melissa Roy, Assistant Town Manager.
Good evening, Russell Dean, Town Manager.
Amanda Kelly, Parks and Rec, Library, Human Services, and DPW General.
Andrew Elliott, and I'm on DPW General.
Jordan Reeves on Water and Sewer Subcommittee.
Judy Rowan, Police and Fire Chair.
Christopher Zigmont, Crestview Drive, and I am on subcommittee for general government.
Anna Grazier, I'm on subcommittee for general government.
Anthony Swan, 7 Marlborough Street, Subcommittee for Water and Sewer.
Thank you. And also with us off mic, our select board representatives, Nico Papakassatis, the chair, and Julie Gilman, as well as Hope Giordino and Greg Bisson, who will be talking with us about their department, as well as Joanna Bartel, our recording secretary. So without further ado, turn to page 28, actually 29. Chris is going to start with library tonight. So page 29, and take it away, Chris.
All right. So, thanks for coming, Hope. So I know I sent out something written, and I didn't even bring a copy for myself. But, oh look, and I'm not going to read it to you guys, but as you know, the library is has its own board of directors, but we do review their budget. It helps us understand their expenses and provide some input as well, which they're great about taking that into account. And they have an excellent board that really does their due diligence to make sure that they have a good, healthy budget, but nothing too crazy. So that's my nutshell. And so we met with Hope, and as I put in the notes, we have what the budget, what the town is going to, would like to pay, the 187.5 overall. But the library, and I can let Hope talk about it a little bit, they have something they call an operating statement, which is slightly different. And it is actually a higher number, but it's not a higher number where the taxpayers pay the difference. They have other sources of funding that they seek out, such as the annual appeal is like one part of it, to help make up that difference from what they feel they need to really run the library versus what the town contributes. So, and I said, other than that, we talked about, the renovations. I know they've been completed now for well over a year, but it's nice to see, any changes. We always hoping that, costs will go down with a more efficient building, but with the kind of the rates, using less, but the rates going up kind of balances things out. So it helped us from not paying even more, basically. Outside of that, the other thing that had come up, and it comes up, all the time on any building with a roof, and a couple days of sunshine, was looking into solar, which they did investigate, but it turns out because the roof is not quite big enough to get a payback that makes any sense. So it would be more than 25 years to get payback on solar. So that just turned out not to be an option. And other than that, I'd just like to, I wonder if anybody has any questions, things that didn't make sense from the write-up. Throw it out there. And then, or if Hope wants to talk about, I guess I shouldn't jump it around, but
Yeah, Hope, if you have a statement or anything you'd like to add?
Well, now that the building is really set and people are coming back, we're finding that we're having more and more people coming in. It's getting busier and busier, and we've been adding to the programs that we do. We normally have story time and book groups, and one of the suggestions that the committee's made was to get an idea of numbers of kids and adults showing up. We now have 2 daycare groups that come in once a week, and we also have school visits every week from the SAU. And then in the fall and the spring, we have about 10 classes that come in to the library. We're seeing a lot of families come in for that room that we call the lounge, which is the room near the river with all the windows, coming in with their kids, especially small children, because it's kind of a play area there, so that when their older kids are at a program, they feel comfortable enough to be still in the building, still nearby, but a place for their little ones to play. So that's worked out really well. We see probably 30-plus families in there a week. Not all at the same time because they wouldn't fit, but they do tend to come in. The other things we've added were a Dungeons and Dragons group for the kids from ages 8 and up. We've added a STEAM program for children at the same age group. We do scavenger hunts and that type of thing for the little kids. We're seeing more families. Because we're seeing that people are having a third child. So we're seeing the teens in the teen room, a child that's under 11 in the children's room, and a baby. So we're very busy with families. We've also added something in the adult services called a digital conversion center. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you can now bring videos, VCRs, slides, photographs, old reel-to-reel movies, and digitize them at the library. And the only cost to people is the cost of a disc or a thumb drive. And we have it in the historical room, and it's become very popular. The other thing that's become popular is our Library of Things. We added a bunch of large games that people can play outside, and that's become popular. So we are following what people want, listening to what they have to say, and trying to get it to them. We've started again to do our book talks. We take book talks and books to 277 Water Street, to Langdon Place, and to River Woods once a month. We do tech help in the library about how to use a cell phone, because we have a lot of older patrons who get a cell phone and are unable to really use it, how to use a laptop, how to use a Kindle, that type of thing. It's a one-on-one. We set up an appointment, somebody sits down with them and works with them until they really get it. Those are all the types of things that we do, and those are the things that people don't think of, because we're not just books. But we're seeing 30-plus children coming into the teen room each day or over a day. Either they're homeschool and they're dropping in, or they're coming in after school and they're staying until someone can pick them up, because we have 2 buses that will drop the teens off at the library. We have book groups for them, we have book groups for the little kids, and we have book groups for the adults. So we're trying to find all of those things that we can provide that the community wants. And if we have a suggestion from someone that, oh, I'd like to see something, we give it a try. And that's how Dungeons and Dragons started for us. That's about it. We're open 56 hours a week. We want to be open full-time on Saturdays, and we're hoping if we can fill the 2 open part-time positions, we'll be able to do that.
Great, thank you. Tom?
I just wanted to know if my committee members had any things they wanted to add, from our discussion, or I know I jump all over the place, but. I know it was really fascinating to learn like how many services are provided by the library and activities. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. And if you're not if you want to know more, they do have an email mailing list. I get my library newsletter every week. And
everything we do is free and open to the public, so we do not charge for anything.
I'm totally going to take advantage of getting some stuff digitized.
Yeah, come in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know where to direct this, but I'm just going to throw it out there and probably stick my foot in my mouth. And maybe this is for the town manager, maybe it's for the select board. I don't know, but what jumps out at me is first of all, I'm immensely proud of the library, and I'm super happy that the voters approved the renovation that we have. It's splendid, and all the programs and everything, I love it. I'm super proud of it. I really am. But what jumps out at me about this budget is the 2 added full-time positions.
We didn't add 2.
There's a note there that says added 2 full-time positions.
We had 1 open full-time position, and we had 2 part-time positions in the children's room. We interviewed, it's very hard to find people who want to work in the library, want to work anyway. We found 2 candidates, both of them so good at what they are and what they do now, that we hired 1 full-time, and we put the 2 part-time positions together and hired that person as full-time.
Yeah, what we have in our budget is very misleading, and we talked about that. So I tried to put it into the narrative, but because it looks like they added 2 positions, but they didn't add 2 positions. They had unfilled positions. So one of those full-time positions was filled, and then what they did is they took 2 of the open part-time positions already in the budget, and they combined that to make 1 full-time position and hired a person for that.
Okay.
So they were basically just filling empty slots.
Okay.
So unfilled positions, by combining 2 part-time, filling them with 1 person, and then filling in another open
Well, thank you for clarifying that, and maybe, I think I try to read these memos as soon as they come in. Some of them, of course, come in the day we meet. But okay, so that jumped out at me. I've now been educated on that. But it frustrates me because, in other departments, we deliberate for a long time about adding any positions, okay? And we usually start with adding part-time, and then eventually, okay, the need is demonstrated, and we go to full-time. So suffering through that in the other departments, at least when I see something like this, it really jumps out at me, and it pains me relative to some of the other departments. Now, over the years, having been in this process now, and knowing that you have your own board of trustees, and that essentially we don't have a whole lot of say in this budget, it frustrates me a little bit. And so I hope that the town manager has, a good line of communication with the Board of Trustees of the library, and that the Board of Trustees of the library is aware of how much we deliberate on adding any position. So I just want to throw that smelly fish out on the table so that you understand my frustration with this aspect of the budget.
I guess I want to make sure it's clear. They did not add positions. These were literally unfilled positions that were filled, and 2 that were combined to make 1.
Yeah.
So they were not added positions. It just looks like that in our budget, and I knew that was going to come up tonight. So they were filling empty slots, unfilled, like we have all over town, positions that just remain unfilled. So they filled unfilled positions, so they did not add any. But we also have to remember they have a board of trustees that goes through the same process we go through. So it's not that the process isn't being gone through. It's being not by us. It's going through by other folks that are going through and going, because they know that it's limited funds. They're going to get limited funds from the town, so they have to come up with a budget that works with that. And if it doesn't, and if they need more than that, then they raise it on their own. So they work with the budget that the town has, provided, and then if, like I said, that...
No, we don't provide them with a budget. They tell us what their number is.
Well, we vote on it. The town votes on it. We all vote on it, so it's still voted on. But they do, they still, it's not like it's not governed, they have their board, and Russ, I'm sure, is very in tune with.
Is there a representative from the town that attends those meetings? Last year, we had, of course, Kathy Corson, who was on the Budget Committee, who was also on the Board of Trustees.
The town does not have a designated representative that attends library trustees.
That's my point. So I'm just sharing my frustration, that's all. I'm super pleased with the library.
Maybe we can ask a question.
I can tell you, I understand what you're saying. I understand your frustration, but from our point of view, the frustration was we could not fill the positions.
We have this problem in all the other departments.
I understand that, but let me just finish with this. We came upon two people, young people, two, because we're all getting old, no offense. Two young people who have the education and the wish to be librarians, to be children's librarians, who brought new ideas and new programs. And if I hire one, I still have two open part-time positions nobody's interested in. And I am interested in making that the best possible place for children and their families. Therefore, we talked about it with the trustees, we talked about it with the staff, and decided to put two positions together and get two full-time people. I understand your frustration, but you have to understand, and you know it, I think there are places, I think you have in your departments, we're not a department, but in your departments, I know you have openings that you can't fill because you can't find the right person. We found two right people, and to have one of them walk away when I was still going to have missing two part-time positions, that to me would have been a foolish move.
Okay. Judy?
Hope, could you just say a little bit more about these part-time positions that are unfilled? Are you running into difficulties with the general labor market, or is there something about part-time work for librarians per se?
How do I say this and not sound like we're finding that people who want part-time at the library do not understand the work that's involved. They think the position is to stand behind the desk and check out a book and check in a book and maybe shelf books if they have a minute. They don't understand that that is so much less than what is expected of them. So when they find out, they come to an interview and they find out what we really want them to do, now they're going to look someplace else. And I think that is not unusual, but that's what we're finding. And if we do have someone who feels like this is what they want to do, and then we say, come in, see, try it out, see what you think. They'll say, no, I thought I would be sitting at the desk reading books. And I always say, hey, wait a minute, if there's a job, that's the job, that one's mine.
Yeah, I've earned it.
Liz?
Yeah.
Did you get an answer?
Thank you.
I'm just going to echo some of the things that I've heard here, which is like it's hard to fill part-time positions anyway, that we can budget all we want and set aside money for positions, but if nobody wants those roles or wants to be paid the amount that's offered or for only part-time work or without benefits, it doesn't matter that we've budgeted it because the work isn't getting done. So the fact that they were able to solve a problem, like they have people who are excellent, who they want to be there, which don't we all want to hire people who want to do that role and so forth, but to use what they had to creatively solve that problem is a big deal, and we should be evaluating all of that in all of the other departments. We can't fill these roles. That's a big deal. We need to evaluate what we're doing.
Great.
In response to that, pretty shortly, I think we're going to be talking about another position that was, is being proposed as a part-time that we know damn well is going to be hard to fill. And we're not going to find the money in the budget to make it a full-time position or that we can justify the increase in the budget item. That's my frustration. That's all. I'm not. And the other part of my frustration is simply the lack of communication between, let's say, the Board of Trustees for the library and this budget committee. Like I said, I just hope there's another set of eyes on it because I feel like, we're just rubber stamping this, that's all. And I'm super happy with the library and what it does, but I'm just telling you, we're just rubber stamping these numbers. So I hope someone else higher up is.
I have a question for Hope after, but I want these guys, need to go first.
Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive. Just a point of clarification. So, is there still open part-time positions?
We still have 2 open positions, but those are in adult services.
So it sounded like that you took 2 part-time positions and made it into a full-time, right?
Right.
So there's basically
There was 4.
There were 4.
There's
right.
2 left. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 of them became full-time. I'm just trying to figure this out. And so basically the difference is just the difference in basically.
So the note
40
should be, we didn't add 2 full-time.
No, we're just
Right.
trying to fill
hired-
positions.
We filled
Yeah.
2 full-time. Yeah. So
Yeah.
in the zeal to explain what happened over the year, it should have been filled, not added.
There were 2 created.
So were there 2 full-time and 4 part-time, or just
No.
4 part-time, 2 became?
Well, actually, what's happened now is somebody actually recently resigned.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that was a full-time position.
Yeah.
So instead of hiring a full-time person, we're going to hire 2 part-time people. But that's different service, that's adult services.
All right.
So Corey,
have now-
in this case, money talks.
Yeah,
What's that, the finance guy?
Yeah.
Sort of
So I
clarify.
don't have the money, but I have the number of staff. So in 2023, per the budget, there were 9 full-time, and this year there are 11 full-time.
No, there are 10.
No, there are 11. And then last year there were 17 part-time per the budget, and now there are 12. So there was a shift from part-time dollars being moved to full-time. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10.
yeah, I mean, these are the calculations we get from the library to do our payroll calculations. So unless the payroll calculations are wrong,
Are you in?
I'm
Well, it sounds like somebody needs to
Right,
volunteer
and
to
the
take
other position is, she's
Kathy
not.
Corson's place on the board of directors
So they're at 10.
as a liaison with the budget committee.
Yeah.
So, perhaps
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
would step up and do that.
And I think now would be maybe a good time to ask Hope, instead of expressing frustrations, is ask Hope, there's no rubber stamping, there's a process. So could you maybe help us understand how the process is with your board to do the budget? And how, it's,
Well, we sit down and look at what we have going on, what we want to do, what we want to pay, the salaries we need to pay, where they fit on the non-union pay scale, and the budget committee we have a budget committee, brings it together, or actually their finance.
okay.
And they bring it together, and I look at it and give them suggestions, and they sit down and we talk about it and they vote on it.
Okay, so I think that's good to know that the Board of Trustees for the library has their own finance committee that goes over their budget, that meets with Hope, who works with them on the budget, that's presented to your board, who I assume votes on it.
Right.
And I assume Russ is involved in this process as well. at some
I am
point.
not involved in that
You don't
process.
meet at all? Okay, sorry.
No.
My mistake. So there's
Because
a
we're
finance
separate.
committee.
We're not a department.
Well, I know, but
That's
I didn't know if there was
What's
just,
submitted to the town manager comes through the library trustees.
Okay.
After they approve it. So it's not altered in any way by the town manager's office.
Okay.
Before it gets to the budget recommendations committee and onto the select board.
all right. But at least I think it's really good to know, and make sure everybody hears this, that they have a finance committee on their board of trustees that works with Hope to make a budget, which is then voted on by the board of trustees of the library.
And we get input from the finance department as far as if we're doing a step raise or whatever the non-union scale is. They help us with that part.
I guess going forward, and we have the same conversation every year, and we were.
Not with me.
Well, as a committee, it always comes up. Maybe in the future, either a combination of you and the chair of your board of trustees, it might be worthwhile to have an hour get together with Russ and Corey in the summer, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
True.
Because so far, everything's worked out great over the years. There might be a year when your public services budget has to be $250,000, and then we see that number but have no input on it. So I think that's where Tom is going, is that we get this. We're not necessarily rubber stamping it, but we don't really have any ability to, to get it in line with the other aspects of the budget that we discuss. So I guess I would just suggest that.
I understand,
going forward.
certainly.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that you're in line, you folks are in line. I know you're not a department, but just to make sure that you're in line with what they're thinking about as they're putting the budget together in the summer.
I think, yeah, I think what probably makes us frustrating too is we're used to people come in and we ask them questions, we make suggestions, and we vote. But we don't do that with the library, so why have the library come in at all, right?
Exactly.
Oh, I think the reason it's good to have the library come in is so they can talk about why their budget is what it is, because the voters, taxpayers do pay. So this is a great opportunity for the library to come in and explain their budget, explain where the money goes, and explain what's going on in the library so that people know. Because every year I learn something new about the library, and I think it's really helpful. And understanding their budget and what it costs to run the library, I think it's important for us to hear it, whether or not we vote on it or not. So what? I mean, we learn from Hope, right? And what their board does. And then we, I think, also have that responsibility to go out to our community and our neighbors, because I know my neighbors ask me, and I can tell them about all these different things and why things cost what they cost and the reasons behind it. So having Hope come here, whether or not we vote on anything, it is being voted on by somebody. So it's not us, but it's certainly, I think, incredibly beneficial that we hear about the library and their budget and why.
Fully agree.
And what's going on. So I think that's just another way to look at it.
And you meet with them as a subcommittee, and the rest of us don't. So there needs to be somehow that link, and I think the beginning of that link is them speaking with Russ and Corey, and then that will trickle down, I think, a little bit more effectively, just as an idea. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I think that's great too, to, but maybe before they, to have more discussions, but I just don't want to, I don't believe that it's a waste of time to have the library come here, because I think it's incredibly beneficial. And
I didn't say that.
But if they have a $40,000 item that they want to put in their budget in the public services, and they talk to Russ and Corey, and they say, that looks very reasonable, we should do that, then, and we know that, rather than just seeing it a line, I think we would all feel better about it. I know I would.
Yeah, and just to be, so everyone on the committee is aware, Hope and I did have a conversation about the part-time wages. And that's why you see the number there of 130,000. That was a number that was arrived at after conversation about what was, the base number for part-time wages, what it should be. Yeah. So that's what came out of that conversation.
Yeah. I guess my point was too, is I wanted, there is communication between you guys.
We talk.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So, I mean, I just think that's good to know too.
Can I just ask a follow-up? That's what I was going to ask about, was about the wages, because I noticed in the last paragraph, you talk about the 5% raise. There's too big a gap between what the staff are currently paid and the town's kind of personnel salary scale. And I'm just curious how broad that gap is. And I know it's hard to pay wages that are living or above.
Well, I think.
Did you increase them when you said you reviewed that part?
Your pay plan.
Yeah, well, we put people on the non-union pay scale, and we have successfully been able to do that.
Okay.
We did have a discussion about one of the, what do you call the steps? Not the steps, before the steps. What are those?
Grades. Grades.
Yeah, we did have a discussion of one of the grades, but I understood why it was what it was and why ours was different. I think right now we're at a point where people are, it's not really the pay that's keeping us from having part-time, it's the work.
Just in case it didn't come out in that conversation, the library does have their own pay plan. The town has a pay plan, a pay and classification plan with grades and steps. The library has their own plan with grades and steps in it that they do their own research on and create their own wage scales based on that. That is not something the select board or the town manager does.
Okay.
All good information, right?
Judy?
Voters also have a chance to vote for the library trustees. That's another vehicle of oversight.
Thank you.
And I think Hope is in the tradition of librarians who are a little jealous of their mission, which is enshrined in state law, that libraries and literacy are seen as essential, foundational to our democracy. And apparently, I would gather in the history, towns have poached from libraries or deprived them of funds, and there's this law to keep that from happening. And so there is that other tradition that is at play here.
Totally agree.
Any other comments or questions? Are there updates to health insurance and such?
Yes, there are. So library health, new number, 135,596, 135,596. Dental insurance, 7,637, 7637. Life insurance, $551. Long-term disability, $959. A few other changes too.
Okay.
Shooting down to unemployment compensation, $176. Workers' compensation insurance, $3,251. Liability insurance, $1,531.
For a total new benefits total?
298,287. 298,287.
And a new total library number.
Total library, 1,256,586. 1,256,586.
Could you give me a percentage, please?
Yes.
If it's easy?
Yep. 7.2.
Andrew?
Just one quick question. Does the library use the same health insurer as the town, so we get those benefits of?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
I will entertain a motion to fund the library budget at $1,256,586.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hope.
Thanks, Hope.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on with the fun. So, human services, I just want to talk about, so, human services funding. There's other things.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure, go ahead.
Is it okay if we do Parks and Recreation first? I know Greg's got a point.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
Oh, God.
Pam is not here, so.
You didn't know
Yeah.
that, so.
We can
that's
take
okay.
all our time
Yeah.
on welfare. so.
Thank you.
Thank you, I
Sorry about
appreciate
that.
it.
Yeah. Sorry, Greg.
All right.
So Greg Bisson is the director of the Parks and Rec Department.
Yeah, so there wasn't a lot to write up or talk about with Parks and Rec, except for, we're seeing the increases because there's been some wage increases, which it's already been discussed about, which of course, everything goes up with that. Except there was the other contract services, and I talked about that with the mowing and everything. We've had this issue in the past that it's a lot of work, and they have 2 people to do everything in the summer. So I don't know if my colleagues have anything to add to this discussion, or if Greg just wants to talk about the need for, the increase for contract services. But
I'd be happy to. Thanks, Chris. As she stated, the good news, we finally stabilized on staff this year. So we've had 2 full-time staff 98% of the year. But what keeps coming back up is 56 acres for 2 people and some contracted services already. It is very difficult to maintain. Our staff is on a mower pretty much 40 hours a week, and that's 2 guys traveling around. And it's not allowing them enough time to do other park maintenance. And when I say other park maintenance, I'm going to go down the line of things that we've assumed over the last couple of years, especially this year, especially with DPW being short-staffed. For instance, the spray pad used to be opened up and winterized by Public Works. That's no longer a case because the water department does not have enough people. We're lucky enough where our staff has the talent, having worked at a water park, so they know the systems. Oftentimes, you may go around, we see benches that may be in need of repair. They often either have to remove the boards or not repair it for a number of times. We don't have time to trim hedges or trees. The skate park needs a lot of repair and a lot of TLC. Graffiti removal is one of their favorite hobbies that they get to do all the time. Turf maintenance and repair. I mean, these are stuff that we have washouts or erosion. We don't have time to get to them. Something that we should be doing on a town level is playground inspections. A typical playground is inspected once a month. Our guys do not even have, we do the frequent where we pop in and we look quickly, but they should be having time to go and inspect them, repair anything that's broken. Fence repair. That's something that we try to fit in. We actually started that, excuse me, at Kids Park. We replaced the chain link fence. Dock and maintenance repair. This year has been a very challenging year because we've had some scallywags do some things on the dock that we shouldn't be.
Yeah, ne'er-do-well.
Yeah. Infield maintenance, pool maintenance again, equipment maintenance, park cleanup, like trees fall, branches fall. We can't call upon DPW to come help and bail us out because they're already short-staffed. So having more contracted services will allow us the time to actually go out and do this stuff. One of the things, and I brought it up, is, and it goes down to, could we get seasonal staff? And this is not the year to go for it, but we can't. So we have to rely on more contract services to free up our guys to actually do park maintenance. And that's really what it comes down to. And to tell you, to better utilize their talents. This year alone, projects that we were able to use in-house work, we painted the pool, saving over $60,000. Wow. Because we did it. Replacing the fence saved us $4,000. And we did it ourselves. We had to renovate our infields. The Park Improvement Fund, they did a lot of the work. We had to get some assistance as we didn't want sod dying, but they did a lot of the work. They cut sod, they regraded the infields. I mean, that saved us probably $10,000 if we had contracted it out. So why not utilize our staff's talents and know-how and better utilize them in the areas that we can save money instead of contracting it out. Mowing, there's plenty of mowers out there, contractors. We have been fortunate enough to have 2 contractors in town that do bid on to mowing, but hopefully as we move forward, they'll continue to. But having them do the mowing rather than our staff, not saying they're not doing any mowing, because there's still plenty, again, 56 acres. I don't have enough money in this budget to contract out everything. There's still going to be certain properties that we're going to have to maintain. But just having a little more assistance to get us over the hump, and especially after a summer like this where all of you that have lawns probably struggle to mow them, same thing, especially when we have to then try to squeeze in 5-6 properties in a day rather than spread it out through the week. And it's just becoming too difficult to maintain, and before the town gets too further behind on just simple park maintenance, having that opportunity to have them do it is really key.
Thank you, Greg, for that.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Tom?
Any discussion about adding an employee?
Yeah, we've talked about that concept. I think we've gone back and forth in terms of labor market and would you actually be able to hire somebody into a position? That's always a consideration when you're talking about contracted services versus personnel.
Exactly.
And I think we've reached the conclusion that Greg's had in his budget in years past the ability to hire seasonal personnel, but it didn't work out even in a better labor market than it is right now. So I think in making that determination between contracted services and personnel, if there's a choice to be made, it's probably contracted services. It's more reliable given the labor market that we're facing.
I agree. Is it enough money then, contracted services?
Question, yeah.
Yes, we should be able to achieve some more projects, especially bench replacement, dock, pool. I mean, just alone, my staff has identified several deficiencies on the spray pad that they're going to plan on fixing in the spring. That we have to pay for the water, as you know, so we'd rather keep recycling the water instead of having it leak out of our systems. So, I mean, again, that's another asset of their skills. They can fix those things that we could never fix before.
I think the liability is all something that, is important to think about. He talks about going and doing a quick scan of playground equipment, and, well, if there's something that breaks and the kid's on it, we're responsible for that if we're not taking care of our equipment. So
there's an RSA out there that protects municipalities for open, free recreation. 2022 was tipped on its head a little bit when someone got hurt in a state park in Rye. And the Rockingham judge had ruled, well, no, it was open free. It's the liability is not on the state and Rye to fix it, have it. But then she appealed it to the Supreme Court, and they overruled it, saying no, that municipality in the state does have some due diligence to make sure any free recreational places are safe.
Right.
So there's a precedent that was started last year. I don't want to get into that position this year.
Yeah, and in addition to that, even if, we felt that our parks were relatively safe, or, safe enough to meet the standard, never going to stop someone from suing you. And if they sue you, you have to fight back, you have to get your lawyers involved, and it costs you money no matter what. So if we can avoid that, I think that's better, and really not something we should even have to worry about. We should just know that we can feel that our kids are safe and the equipment's safe and our parks, everything look decent.
Mr. Chair.
Sig?
Yeah, Greg, with the contract services, it's a reasonable number, but give me an idea, just for people that are watching this at home, what kind of burden does that actually relieve from those guys that are having to mow? I mean, they're still going to have to mow a sizable portion of the parks, or do we see a future where, that's two guys, right? So there's, like you said, there's a lot of park facilities and a lot of acreage, and there's a lot of projects. Would you like to see more of the, weekly mowing done by contract services? Is that enough?
There's alternatives down there, but we're still exploring it, Chris, honestly. Maybe down the line, we do add more contract services, but right now, this should be able to mow several of our parks that are highly used that will allow us to then focus on those little things. So acreage-wise, I'd probably, if I had to guess, we'd probably be able to achieve 22 to 25 acres of the 56 that are contracted services.
Thanks.
So, since that's not a round number, I'm assuming you've calculated some hours that you've...
Based it off past precedent of bids, and then I did a 5% escalator. Knowing that my contractors in the past have been very great and haven't raised rates in 3 years. Which, for them, that's been a bonus, and both of them are town residents, so kudos to them, but at the same time, they could also go away. We know how quickly businesses close out.
I like Dr. Zwan's recommendation of goats, actually. It's a very good idea.
Andrew?
Just looking back at historical numbers for contracted services, so it looks like it's gone from about 20,000 in 2017 to about 65, 70,000 more recently. It's going up quite a lot. So I can see that there's definitely a trend here towards contracted services, and maybe the point of hiring somebody, we might be at that point based on the trend that we're seeing in the actual spend. But at the same time, just one more second, Melissa, I know. Just at the same time, I also think that if the Department of Public Works was fully staffed and they had this chipper body and the watering truck and the other things that are planned for them, is this a 1 year increase of 20%, or is this like
The new
if
norm.
they were staffed properly and they could help you out with that limbing and the treeing work?
Well, they actually, Andrew, they help us in a pinch. They don't really, they have their own set of jobs that they need to maintain. So to give you historical data, when I came here 20 years ago, we had 2 full-timers and 6 seasonal.
Sorry, 2 full-timers and what?
6 seasonal
6
staff.
seasonal, part-time. Wow.
Now it's 2 full-time and.
And no seasonals.
And no seasonal.
Well, luckily we haven't grown in 20 years, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You were going to say something?
So Greg just said one of the things, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that where the department has changed is losing 6 seasonal staff.
Yeah.
So the amount of work that was happening. Also, Corey, Russ, and I have to look at all the budgets that get submitted, and we talk with each department on what decreases we can be made so that we can get a budget to you guys that we think is acceptable. In Greg's defense, he did ask for more contracted services, so you're not wrong in what he's asking. But what we had to do was look at the whole picture, and in discussions with Greg, he could manage for the year. So I just want to be honest that we review everything, and then sometimes we ask the departments to cut back in certain ways and that kind of stuff before it comes to you guys. So.
Well, I think...
Yes, and some of this was shift, thank you for reminding me, some of this Greg was able to shift into his rec revolving account so that he could do a little bit more, so it is a little bit of a tricky thing.
Well, it's a start, and we can monitor it over the next year.
From all of the departments when it gets submitted, so.
No, that's super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, even with the increase, the budget for next year is less than what we spent last year and almost the same as what we spent the year before, so.
But that was skewed, Bob, because I've been short-staffed for 2 years, pretty much.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, so
But
I
I'm
had
saying
to-
what you're asking doesn't seem in the grand scheme of things to be that big a deal. If you're taking money out of your revolving fund to help pay for stuff that should be in the budget, we're probably rolling downhill towards looking at another full-time staff or something.
Or find alternatives. One of the things that I'll be totally next year, one of the things we're looking for, the person that paints our athletic fields for us is retiring. So we are looking, instead of paying him the fees that we've usually, we're gonna get a robot. Yeah. The tiny robot is actually one of the greatest things I've ever seen for painting fields. Typically, to set up a soccer field is 3 to 4 hours because you got to do the 1, 2, 3 method. Everyone knows geometry. Got to make sure it's straight. This robot can be set. You can set a soccer field in 15 minutes and paint it in 20 with straight lines.
GPS.
Something I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So right there is going to be one of the solutions we're trying to find to be more efficient while using technology, and it's a green product because it's battery powered too. So I mean, we're trying to find alternatives to make it more efficient.
Marvelous.
I can see chefs in the end zone in our future.
It does do
Guys remember that
logos, so
commercial?
we could do some
Chiefs
funny
versus
things.
the chefs.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that update. So if there's no other comments or questions, let's start with recreation, which seems pretty straightforward. Corey, if you could update us on the benefits.
Sure. Recreation health insurance, $60,883, 6083. Dental insurance, $3,657, 3657. Life insurance, $321, 321. Long-term disability, $842.
For new benefits total?
$129,340, 129,340.
And a updated recreation total?
$437,248, 437,248.
I will entertain a motion for that number for the recreation budget.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Before we, well, let's do the benefits on parks, and then I have a question. So let's do health insurance on parks, Corey.
Park health insurance, $10,544, 10544. And dental insurance, $1,668, 1668. Life insurance, $92.
New benefits total?
$34,969, 34969.
Thank you. So I just have a question. In the report, did you do this report, or is this from Craig?
That was not me.
So this is from you, this report. So at the bottom on page 2, it says that overall the entire Parks and Rec budget increased $79,855. And that's not the number that we're seeing. So
That might have been an older number.
Okay. So that was probably a number, because to Melissa's point, the contracted services might have been higher, and you came and settled on the 11,340, but that is the same in the report. So I just want to make sure that we're, the numbers that are in our book are the ones that you're comfortable with.
That is 100%.
Okay, and to be clear for everybody, so the report says, it makes it sound like they're asking for that 11,340. That's actually baked into the original budget request, so we don't have to vote on that or anything. Any further comments on the contracted services? Okay. A new parks total, Corey.
$251,581, 251,581.
I will entertain a motion for that amount for the parks budget.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the total Parks and Rec?
Sure. 688,829, 688,829.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor of a total Parks and Recreation budget of $688,829 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Percentage, please?
I think that's that 13%.
Oh, you think that's the 13?
I'd be curious if it matches.
12.1.
12.1?
No, it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's deceiving because, some departments have much higher numbers, and so.
So, Russ, Greg doesn't need to weigh in on culture or special events. Is that something you can cover, or does he need to stay for those?
Greg can stay for that, and we can go through it together.
Okay. So, other culture and recreation, did you have any? You didn't discuss that, did you?
No, they're flat, so.
Yeah. Any discussion on what some of those items are? They're somewhat self-explanatory.
And they're fabulous, so. I'm so glad we have them. Seriously, I just love it.
And no
I just
pun
love it.
intended, but we get the most bang for our buck for the fireworks. Sorry, I just had to throw that out there.
Oh, bada bing.
Thanks, we'll be here through Tuesday.
I will entertain a motion for a other culture and recreation budget of $18,500.
So moved.
Second. Or someone did.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And I will entertain a motion for special events total of $16,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So the total culture and recreation is the same. So I think, so we're done with that, and we just have how human services go through, and then we can total up general government. Thank you, Mr. Bisson, for
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Clearing up some of those questions.
All right. So, human services, because there's new people here, so I'll explain it. So, human services is a committee that currently has 4 people on it, and these folks work with Pam. So, once a year, an application goes out.
Oh, yeah.
And then nonprofits who provide services for basic human needs, such as health care and food, shelter, water, all those type of things. They're having the opportunity to submit an application for funding. So this group meets. We meet with Pam. I'm on the committee. So every year we go over the application itself, look for ways, we look at the funding from last year, questions that came in, issues that we had, things that weren't clear, just maybe possibly tweak the application. And then in the summer, the applications come in, we meet as a group, we review everything and go over those applications and make proposals to fund, not fund, and then how much to fund. So, and as I stated in the write-up, what we do is if an organization comes to us and says, we'd like an extra $500 a year or $1,000, we expect them to write in somewhere a justification for that. Did they serve more Exeter residents? Increases in food costs, gas costs, hiring, whatever it may be. So we do ask for that. And so we have this, and the other thing is to note too is that it's been pretty steady over the years. I can't remember how many years I've been on the committee, but since I've been on it, and I'm sure before that, it was relatively steady number. So it's anywhere between 19 and maybe 21 organizations a year that come to us looking for funding. And the organizations that we have funded this year, these are all organizations that we're familiar with and that we've worked with in the past. And the other thing is good, I think it's good for people to know, is that a lot of these organizations also work with Pam and the town and welfare. So someone will come to Pam looking for help, and she'll reach out to these organizations that can provide those services, whether it's Annie's Angels for a medical bill or something, or Crossroads House, or the Charitable Foundation for warm clothing and bedding for kids. I mean, all those. So it's a very good relationship, so that she's intimately familiar with a lot of these organizations that provide these services. So anywho, yes, we meet, we discuss everything, and we vote on what we recommend to bring forward to the Budget Committee. And also, so if you want any details of these applications, everything's on the website. So you can see the application itself, you can see who's on the committee, you can read up on every organization's application is in there as well. So, and again, the criteria is, we're looking, because there's so many great nonprofits out there. So if you just said a nonprofit, that could be, you can have all kinds of sporting clubs and, Girl Scouts, all these great organizations, but there's just so many. And so we have to say, what is, human services?
SPCA.
Yes, great organization. And so, but we have to say, what is this department? This is our Welfare Human Services Funding Department. What do they help with? And that is, the residents of Exeter, making sure that they have, for those who can't afford it, do they have heat in their home? Do they have health care? Do they have dental? People that are homeless. What can we do? They need food. Whose children need, sneakers for school, or can't afford to pay their to go see the eye doctor. So those are the types of things that that this grant or fund supports. So
So in the past, you were part of that 4-member committee. Are you still
Yep.
part of that?
Yep, I've been on it since we formed it, so.
Thank you.
And for going way back in the past, it was actually right before I got on the budget review committee. It was whoever did welfare also had to go through all these applications.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And come up with, okay, who do we fund and how much? And it's just,
Yes.
it wasn't an appropriate place to have it.
No.
So. I think
Many
it's
of
an-
these agencies are they've been long-time funded agencies by the town, and Chris alluded to the fact that it's an offset to our welfare budget. So basically, our human services philosophy is that we're trying to sponsor agencies that are help us get through that welfare and human services aspect of our operation.
Chris, you want to put in a plug for your other committee members on that review committee and thank them for us?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, you put me on the spot, I'm going to forget.
Yeah, sorry, I put you flat-footed on that.
It's like,
But that's fine.
yeah.
Just send them our
Always so
send
much
them our
gray
thanks.
matter. You can't think of 3
I
names.
know, I know.
Remembering how
We're on
painful
the
the review,
website.
remembering how painful this review used to be when it was done on the general budget committee, I think this is fantastic. So thank you and thank that committee.
Yeah, we're all listed on the website, but yeah, like I said, there's a lot of ways to get involved in town, so I think we even have one open spot, but we're doing great with 4 people, I feel like it's a pretty robust committee at this point, but
Excellent.
it's a great way to get involved in the town, so.
So it looks like the funding is actually less than what we see in our budget, right?
Yeah, it went down just a little bit. We had one organization that did not apply this year, and one that actually went down a little bit. And Judy? Yeah.
Could you fill us in on what's happening with Seacoast Mental Health? They're decreased by 500?
They asked for 500 less. Yeah. Which is, and I think it's because they maybe felt they serve a little lower number, but yeah. So that's actually also really nice to see is that the organizations are very respectful. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about this because I know the police have a strong relationship with Seacoast Mental Health now, and Seacoast Mental Health is more involved now with some of the mental health visits. So I wonder if, this isn't probably counted in the same way on their ledger in the form that they fill out for you, all this activity with the police department. So,
but that's up to them to ask for what they feel is an appropriate ask, and so they have their own calculations that they go by. So every application is a little bit different, and the way they look at it, we have some that say, well, we're asking, our number is, we're asking for like 35% of the cost of the match or something, so it's everyone's a little different in how, but we don't tell them what to ask for, they just ask, so I was really surprised that they asked for less. You don't see that too often.
Especially in mental health, too. So I will...
And I know they do a ton, so
I'll entertain a motion to revise the human services funding to $98,325.
So moved.
Make a point.
Any further discussion?
One more comment, almost more comment for Russ, possibly. It's kind of interesting to note that the human services pot, if you will, is relatively steady over the years. And then if you look higher up on the page, which we've already chopped on, the relief covered in other ways under the Welfare and Welfare Department, we've increased by roughly $35,000, which is kind of interesting. But maybe it's better coming directly from the Welfare Department than it is to go through an added layer. I don't know.
Are you talking?
Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. Are you? I'm sorry. So are you?
So I'm talking about heat, medical, rent, miscellaneous, hotel.
Direct relief.
Direct relief.
So Pam does a really
differentiating between the direct.
Yeah, Pam does a really good job. We get an application in, and if there's an organization that can provide the assistance first, we always go to that organization first.
Yeah.
And then we will provide the relief from us. I would say since COVID, the number of requests have substantially increased. So although we ask our partnering organizations for assistance, and they help us as much as they can, the requests that don't meet those needs have vastly increased, and by state law, we have to provide them. It's one of the only departments that's allowed to go over budget by state law, which is to provide direct assistance. And there is quite an application process and a review and all of that, and she does look for as many alternative funding sources as possible.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Todd?
Yeah, it sort of does.
Not really? I know, I can tell. I'm
No, it
not
wasn't
sure.
even a question as much as it was an observation.
Okay.
That, you know.
All right, and I couldn't remember everybody's last names, that's why I didn't say it. So, of course, you can thank me. And then Sherry Nixon, Cameron Switzer, and Catherine Ryder. And Catherine was our newest, she joined this year, and Cammie joined last year.
Wow, that's great.
So, yeah.
Fantastic.
And Sherry's been on with me since, I think, the beginning, so.
Wow.
They're all fantastic, and it's so nice because everybody brings in a little different background, a little bit different experiences and expertise, so.
Yeah.
Very
Mr. Chair?
fortunate.
We'll pass along our thanks to those three at least,
I will.
if not the fourth person, Chris.
And I just want to tease out, I think maybe what Dr. Zwan was getting at, and again, more just curiosity, and rightly so, we should, we're stepping up and filling the need, and it's grown some, whatever the percentage was that we just pointed out. I'm curious, do we not see the similar value in funding more through these organizations if they can, or is it just trading dollars?
Service,
Or is it just a matter of trading dollars that we feel that we're better to fulfill them directly versus passing those funds through organizations?
Yeah, thank you for that. You asked the question better than I did.
Yeah, I
was
would
kind
say
of mulling it over in my head.
I would say there's some trading of dollars that goes on. That's a fair assessment. But again, these agencies are sort of I don't think it's a one-for-one relationship per se. I think they're providing a lot more in services than would be provided by direct relief.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one of the differences that you see in terms of measuring the agency funding versus the direct relief funding, which is hard dollars.
I think the one that comes to mind to me is housing, right? Like hotels and housing.
Yeah.
Which, we don't have that here in Exeter. We end up paying for hotels. And I don't know, I have no sense of, what the availability is out there. I suspect it's not adequate, but,
So I know Pam's not here to talk about it tonight, and with good reason. But we have successfully placed people in housing this past year, and it was actually very, very difficult to do. It was hard to do. But there was a backbone of people working on that behind the scenes that really helped with the cases that we had. So yes, we're paying for hotels, but we are making inroads when we can on homeless situations. We've had a couple of very difficult ones this past year.
Liz?
I think another variable that would be helpful, I don't know if either of you can speak to this, there's also the Wentworth Trust that also
Correct.
provides
Oh, yeah,
some.
that's great.
Do we have a sense of how much they've provided? If it's somewhere in here, I'm sorry, but that's also another piece of direct.
It is, and you're very right, Liz. I don't have the number. Oh, perfect. Corey can give you the number.
I have
Thank
it
you.
somewhere in my piles.
Sure, I have buried it.
But yeah, the Wentworth Trust is great. I can explain why he's getting up the numbers. They provide, and unless I'm mistaken, it's for women or females, and they'll reimburse the town. We make the expenditure, and they reimburse the town. So I don't know what the reimburse. It's incredible. So the number is really high. I've got it here somewhere too.
I know Andrew had a question too.
But it's in the thousands.
right.
The other thing too with these organizations, like, if we were to take on everything that they do, we'd be, well, I shouldn't say that.
So the
We'd
Wentworth
be in
doesn't
trouble.
even show up in our budget because it's an even Steven thing. The money gets reimbursed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in here. It's in there somewhere, but
It's in an income account. It's not netted against the expense. Hold on one second.
While he's looking at it, I've just got a quick housekeeping question. So the direct relief food line item. It like looks like it was not funded for a long time, and then it had no expenses for many years, and then there's like $17 on there this year, and
I miss which line?
the direct relief food. And I mean, I know we do like 8,000 or something like that to St. Vincent's de Paul, and that's where we typically send them. Is there a reason why we're keeping that line on the budget? That like where we're pretty much not really using it that much?
Yeah, it's just in the event, sorry.
Oh,
It's just in the event that we have an expense in that account, that we have a category to categorize it in. So you see that there's the footnote, grocery store gift cards of St. Vincent de Paul is not available, so we may have an expense there in any given year that we just may not have in another year.
If we have someone come in and St. Vincent's is not open, we may provide a grocery card for $20 or something for the day, just to get them through until St. Vincent's open. It doesn't, like you can see, it doesn't happen often, but it can happen, and so that's why we have the line item.
Yeah. I was just curious. It just seems like a line item that doesn't really get used. It's a good question. One less thing to talk about, maybe.
So in 2022, in 2022, Wentworth Trust was around $30,000.
Wow.
Do you have any other registrations? Okay, if you don't.
I don't at the moment. I can get you.
So the Human Services funding budget of $98,325 has been moved and seconded. And seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Can you give me that number one more time, Bob?
98,325.
Okay, thank you.
Before we vote on the total welfare and human services, I just want to give people another swing at the piñata. Last week, and 2 weeks ago, when we talked about welfare, Pam had talked about she wants to focus full-time on her position as Russ's is it senior executive?
Senior executive assistant.
Assistant, okay.
Yes.
So, and she's been doing, the welfare and human services administrator work as a sort of a part-time thing. So we had talked about hiring a part-time person, 30 hours a week. And we had voted in that budget, but I can't remember who, I apologize, but somebody had brought up a couple of different options. Do we want to consider full-time? Pam gave us a breakdown last week of what the difference would be between part-time and full-time. So I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable still with our decision a few weeks ago that we were going to fund a part-time position to do that work at 30 hours a week, which would add $42,684 to the FY24 budget. The impact of a full-time person would be $84,629, or, effectively double, with benefits and all that. So I just, again, want to make sure that we're all still comfortable with that vote, or if we want to revisit it.
I'll comment. I'm very comfortable with part-time. I don't think for a town of our size that we need a full-time welfare person.
I think and just to reiterate, I think our philosophy on this was, I think it was said earlier tonight at one point that we looked at the overall budget and we looked at the increases, and I think in the discussions that we've had internally, we're comfortable with the idea of starting this out at a part-time, at a 30-hour week position, then reporting back to see if it needs to grow by any stretch. But at this point, we're recommending the 30-hour week position.
It'll be interesting to see if you can fill it.
Well, I was reflecting back on the discussion 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was, is that the depth of the discussion really was, is it fillable? It's obviously, it's going to take a very special person to do that role. Right. And if that scenario is true, that it'll take a long time to either fill it or we won't fill it. What's the burden moving forward on Pam to and the rest of the team to continue to fill that role while it's open?
Right.
Well, we'll have to make a lot of effort to fill it. We know that. We do know that there are other positions out there in municipalities. I don't want to name names, but they're out there, and there are people in those positions that may look at our town favorably. We'll have to see how that goes.
As they should. But
That would be one avenue to try to fill it.
But to follow on your comments, I'm concerned about the other aspect of Pam's position and that she get freed up soon enough to attend to the other duties as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we all worry about filling part-time positions, but if we use that philosophy, and trust me, I get it. My husband owns a company. They have to fill people all the time. But it's beyond challenging. However, if we took that philosophy of, well, we won't be able to get a part-time person, so we have to hire full-time. That means every part-time open position that we have, we should go, well, we should just make that full-time because no one's going to work part-time. That's not a way to deal with it either. If it's a part-time position, then we need to fill it as a part-time position, or come up with something else, but not just take every part-time job, make it full-time to.
No, but I think respectively, this isn't mowing the grass at the park. This is
no.
This is a much more sensitive, deeper.
Yeah, and I totally get it. And
more
there's
mentally and emotionally challenged.
Yeah. Trust me, I agree. But I also know that I know some smaller towns. Actually, a friend of mine does this, where she does contract work for smaller towns. So that's always another option.
Contractors.
Well, another contract services. But there's solutions out there. But I just don't think that if it should be a part-time position, that we make it a full-time just because we're worried about not hiring somebody. I think we try first and then at least give that a fair shake. But yeah, I don't want it to remain unfilled either, not at all.
So Corey, I'm sorry, go ahead, Liz.
How many hours a week does Pam work on welfare now?
Well, it fluctuates. It depends on the week. I mean, there have been weeks where she puts in a good, I'm going to say, 20 hours a week in a week. It's possible to do that. But again, I think part of our hope for a 30-hour week position is follow up and doing the more detailed work. That the 20 hours a week is an estimate at, again, at any given time, but it does fluctuate.
It's an estimate for somebody whose job is something really
different.
Yes,
very
doing
different.
that much with a totally different job. So we technically have a part-time person doing this now in some ways. She has this role in that capacity. Same concerns as always, just I don't want to be back here in a year and Pam's still doing it because we couldn't fill the position. So that's just always going to be, that's just top of my mind about this.
We can always hope.
Yeah.
So Corey, a new total welfare and human services number?
242,419, 242,419.
I will entertain a motion for that amount.
So moved.
Second.
Not getting that late, folks. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So I think we are done with general fund unless I missed something.
I don't think so.
I think all my check marks add up. So what is the new total general fund, which is on page 31 of the budget?
Total general fund, $23,077,622. 23077,622. That is a $1.751 million increase over the prior year, 8.21%.
Sorry, what was that percentage?
8.21.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion for that budget for the general fund.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We're almost
How is it
halfway done.
possible? We've added, 10, 12, 15% to various departments, and we end up with not a large increase over the original
Not
number.
bad. So, a couple of things, housekeeping items for next week. It's sort of the ball is definitely rolling downhill. Unfortunately, there are a couple of polls
You know
in the
what else
way.
downhill?
So we have water and
You said it.
sewer on Tuesday. A lot of issues to be discussed there. Our preliminary report right now is so far about 6 pages, so there's a lot of, but we'll go through that. That's on Tuesday. And on Thursday, we'll be talking about CIP. Early in the week, I will be sending around a summary of the CIP items and the vehicles that we will be reviewing with references to the page numbers in the CIP book. So hopefully everyone can cross-reference those and be up to speed on the various requests. 2 items that were not talked about this evening, but that will be discussed next Thursday. The Parks Fund, these are both in Parks and Rec. The Parks Fund on page 14 of the CIP book was originally requested at $100,000, and the management team, I'm assuming Russ, Melissa, and Corey, have suggested that be revised to $50,000 for next year. And then right now, the Planet Playground was budgeted at $297,500, but there was a stipulation on a grant. Could you give us a quick synopsis of where we are on that part of it?
So the grant application is still in process. It's going to go forward. So we're pursuing the project at this point. Other than that, there's not a final report. We've done a lot line adjustment on the piece of property that was part of a planning board meeting that's been done. And we're still working with the owners on the sale component.
So the discussion in the book is that if we don't get the grant and we don't do this project, that we would use that bandwidth in the sidewalk fund.
That's the recommendation.
That's still the plan?
Yes.
And do we know the timing on the grant process?
Well, the timing of the grant won't be until January.
So that would be a select board decision to transfer
We'll
those?
know before the
Ultimately,
warrant.
yes. I think the Budget Recommendations Committee could weigh in on that recommendation.
As to whether we think it's...
As to whether you agree with it or not.
Okay.
So, I'm confused now a little bit. Are we going to be potentially looking at a $595,000 warrant article?
That'd be correct, because it's half grant funded. So the $297,500 of the 595 is being recommended from fund balance. Then $297,500 would come in the form of a grant.
So there's no impact to taxes?
Oh,
because it's coming from the other half.
Okay, because it's grant and fund balance.
Right.
But it would still be on the warrant.
It would still be on the warrant, yes.
Because it has to be on the warrant.
Yes.
But it'll say something like no effect on
The select board can technically accept grants.
Yeah.
However, it's been recommended to us in the past that when there's a project with a full cost, that we identify the grant portion in the warrant article.
Yeah.
So we will do that.
Oh, okay.
So it would appear as $595,000, but with the funding sources of $297,500 from a grant, $297,500 from fund balance.
And then that standard disclaimer will not affect the tax rate?
Yeah, no impact.
Even though it's coming out of the fund balance, but it doesn't affect the tax rate, I get it.
Correct.
So we're going to be potentially asked for an opinion, but the select board is not going to be able to make a final decision until very close to the time that you have to make up the warrant.
True, and that's not uncommon with some grant programs.
Right.
We've been through that in the past.
Yeah, okay.
TAP grants and other grants.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to thank Chris and her subcommittee of Liz and Amanda for putting together a very efficient report and discussion this evening. Again, just to remind, we have 2 meetings next week, Tuesday and Thursday. 6:30 in this room. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
Second? Second.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv. Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.